So, good morning and thank you for attending today's webinar aimed at safeguarding the enterprise for not-for-profit and third sector healthcare specifically. Obviously CSTEM, as you'll see on the screen, stands for Systems and Techniques equals Effective Management, and we're all about it's how you use the technology and tailoring technology to fit specific needs. And obviously today we will be talking about cyber resilience and how to safeguard the organisation. So as far as today is concerned, we'll do a brief introduction to CSTEM. We'll be talking about how we operate, what we do and why we do it. We'll go over some of the common challenges in cyber resilience when it comes to connected devices to networks. We are joined by Steve Ledoux from Dougie Mac Hospice, who will be talking about some of their challenges and how they've managed to overcome them. And we will be introducing some conversations with Dr. Mike Hatherall, who's one of our resident technical experts, going through some real world scenarios. As far as questions and answers are concerned, feel free to post them in the chat panels and we'll endeavour to answer them either along the way or we'll look to cover them at the end of the webinar. So in terms of CSTEM, obviously we talked about CSTEM and stands for Systems and Techniques equals Effective Management. We passionately believe it's about the relationships and the foundations that help customers avoid technology becoming shelfware. What we mean by that is where technology is deployed at the time of business need, the environment changes around it, and the technology and its configuration stroke use can fall into becoming into stagnant mode and cease to deliver the value that it was originally intended. So if we have a look at the landscape, everything we do at CSTEM is related to digital transformation outcomes. So as you'll see, we're all on a journey. We all have key drivers for our digital transformation objectives, with a common challenge that I think is recognised in modernising the architecture to support that interoperability and outcomes. Now, this is obviously complicated in a lot of occasions where there are legacy technologies in place or legacy services that can sometimes hinder those journeys. So we operate complementary. So rather than actually say that you need to rip and replace any technology that you have or any legacy technology, we acknowledge that you will already have systems, tools, services in place that does part of what you want and what you need to meet those business objectives. Our focus is bridging the gap. It's taking you from that current level of effectiveness and taking you to a target level of effectiveness. So why do we do it? What we do is obviously when we engage with organizations, we accept the fact that you're already on your digital transformation journey and you will have pending milestones that you need to reach. So for some, that is at the beginning of the journey. For others, they are a little bit further along. But nonetheless, we look to enable data-informed decision-making, so qualifying where you are at the start of your journey. And then as you go through engagements, we deliver accelerated milestones. We reduce the time and effort needed to reach those milestones and improve your risk management along the way. And the further down the engagement that you go, the more business value that is realized each time. So talking about business value, it can be very easily simplified into improving efficiency, productivity, reducing time, effort and costs, and reducing risk. We do this by the way of introducing a combination portfolio of smart services. So we focus in key areas that are identified and qualified as being interdependent on each other in terms of how successful you can be in each of the areas. We'll quite often see that people will embark on cyber resilience and not necessarily take into consideration unified comms or the WAN. So we have expertise across all 5 of those pillars of the business because they all have those shared interdependencies, but they all directly impact digital transformation outcomes. And obviously today we're going to be talking about cyber resilience. So if we have a quick look at the landscape, I think this slide could predominantly consist of hundreds of different extracts from attacks, incidents, breaches, but ultimately what it does indicate is that awareness is at an all-time high I think cyber is on the conversation and agenda with all board members, all senior execs, and it can be quite a complex conversation. However, it is a matter of urgency for a lot of people. A lot of questions are being asked. And it does also reflect the fact that no organisation is really exempt from being targeted or even randomly exposed. So one of the things we're going to be covering today, we'll be talking with Dr. Mike Hatherall shortly, is understanding the threats across the network. So this is the business outcome. These are the questions that need to be asked. So starting with the right questions leads to understanding what your gaps are. And today, Mike will be talking about how these questions can be addressed by looking at your asset inventory and having complete visibility, how you check the device compliance, whether it's a corporate or non-corporate managed device, looking at access control, who has access to what on the network, looking at what elements of automation you can put in place to reduce demands on time and resource, how you respond to incidents, how you quarantine devices, all relating back to risk management. So that's ultimately the common use cases and challenges I think we're looking to cover on today's session. And on that note, I would like to introduce a good friend of ours, Steve Ledoux, who is Head of IT at Dudley Mac Hospice. Thank you for joining us, Steve. It seems a while ago that we first met and started talking about your challenges. So perhaps if you wanted to do a bit of an introduction, and we can start with talking about some of the challenges you originally had in gaining that visibility of everything that was connected to your network.
Yeah, morning Richard, morning everybody else. I'm Steve Ledoux, I'm Head of IT at Douglas Macmillan Hospice in sunny Stoke. I have been here for around about 11 years now, so we've gone through a bit of a journey in those 11 years from where we started to where we are now. I think it was about 2.5, 3 years ago that we first met, Richard, I think. Memory serves right, something like that. But yes, it was.
It does seem a little while ago now, doesn't it, Steve?
It does. Time flies, doesn't it? Yeah. So it was probably 3 years ago. Yeah. So I think when we first started talking, we were discussing telephones and things like that, but the conversation rapidly moved onwards from that point onwards, didn't it? To far more important things.
Yeah, no, it certainly did. I think that was probably indicative of some of the things we're going to talk about today. That it's all very well when you have one direction of engagement, and then something comes down from the exec. We need to focus on this, and conversations
exactly
can quickly turn. So, yeah. So, like I said, so Steve, let's have a chat about some of the challenges that you faced, because obviously it was identified very early on that you needed complete visibility, and you had some challenges around that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the main issue we had at the time was that we had no real-time visibility of what was connected to our network at that exact point in time without looking in 4, 5, 6 different places probably. So, you know, we got lists on spreadsheets, we've got domain controllers with log files, we've got antivirus cloud-based programs, we've got all these things looking at all different machines that connected to our network, but at any one point in time, I couldn't flick a switch and show somebody that this is exactly what is switched on our network and connected and passing data across our network at the moment. So that was the main issue that we had, really. Yeah,
and I think it's fair to say that's quite a common challenge, certainly as we see within these particular sectors, where you've got small teams looking after a raft of duties. So, Steve, with so much emphasis today on compliance, obviously you're in the healthcare sector. How did you and your team find management of those compliance requirements alongside your day-to-day duties of keeping the lights on, so to speak?
Spinning the plates, I think, is the word you're after. Spinning the plates. Obviously, the main issue is it's all about workload, and I'm sure this will be the same for any of your attendees too. If you're a small team in a medium-sized organisation, then if somebody comes to you and says that they want you to give them confidence in their statements that they are compliant with certain rules and regulations, then obviously you have to be able to show them very quickly that yes you are, and yes you can go and sign that form off or do whatever it is that you need to do. So it's difficult balancing those day-to-day IT activities with the much larger scale, sometimes heavily intensive compliance type operations, like for the DSP toolkit or cyber essentials or security audits or PCI DSS or wherever else it is that people have to comply with on a day-to-day basis just to run the organization.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I know we spoke recently about with obviously when you're in a not-for-profit environment and there are some lottery aspects of fundraising. We recently spoke, didn't we, about the change in circumstances in terms of gambling requirements if you hit certain thresholds, and how the changing of how organizations have to do their fundraising has led to additional levels of compliance and regulation that you have to adhere to. So in terms of something you touched on earlier, where you said that obviously you had a number of visibility tools in place and different sources of information, how important is it having that complete visibility of everything that's in your network, not only your managed devices, but your non-managed devices, the BYODs, the IoTs, etc.?
I mean, for me, as a head of IT or an IT manager or wherever you want to call yourself these days, it's for me, it's about risk. It's about what keeps me awake at night. So the risk we had, and the risk that everybody probably has just the same as we do, is that, you know, somebody wanders into the office one day with their own laptop, whips out the network cable out of their work laptop and sticks the network cable into their own laptop because they want to watch Netflix or whatever it may be, and there's a certain program that they want to catch up on while they're in the office, whatever happens. But it's that kind of situation, and it's that kind of situation because we're a 24/7 operation, that there isn't always somebody from IT here. So it's, you know, you might have a dashboard, or you might have a spreadsheet more likely somewhere with a list of all the known MAC addresses on that you try and use to stop people from accessing network cables and network ports on your network. But obviously that's a point in time list, which doesn't work very well when you've got a lot of community staff like we do. So we've got a lot of community staff with devices, and they go home, and sometimes, especially at the moment with the current pandemic, they're at home for quite some time. So when they bring those devices back, obviously the first thing they do is to put them onto their docking station, switch on, and away they go. But obviously what we don't know at that very point in time when they've done that is, where has that laptop been? What has it been doing? What's it got on it now that it didn't have the last time we saw it? What updates did it run? Did its antivirus keep up to date while it wasn't in the office? So it's the keeping me awake at night issues that probably made us talk about this more than anything when we first started, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's that point that you mentioned there, keeping you awake at night. I think that's what, I mean, whilst you've got one of the aims of digital transformation is to address a work-life balance, there is an aspect of it's very hard. It can be quite hard sometimes to switch off in terms of when you've got those concerns. So we talked, didn't we, earlier about having small teams, and we quite often see organizations where the role of cyber becomes a task, which then becomes a responsibility of inherently small IT teams. But those IT teams are already stretched, continually reprioritizing tasks. How familiar does that sound to you?
Yes, very familiar. The old best laid plans of mice and men springs to mind. Obviously just very lately, and I'm sure some of your attendees will have been affected by this too. Obviously, we've had SolarWinds, we've had Sonic Wall. A few years ago, we had WannaCry. It's these kind of things that suddenly not only throw your toys out the pram, but throw the pram off the street, and everybody has to, it's all hands to the pumps, and everything has to change, everything has to stop, and it's constant work for 48 hours or 72 hours, however long it takes. And obviously, being a small team at a large environment, it's very difficult to manage those kind of situations. So having something like Counteract, which is the Forescout software that we use here, having that backing us up is invaluable in those kind of situations.
No, it's an interesting point that you raised there. I'd just like to touch on. You talked about obviously throwing things out the pram and then throwing the pram down the road. In the sector that you're in, let's face it, it's threat to life. And obviously we're talking about not-for-profits here as well, which you can ultimately summarize in providing services to vulnerable people in need. And we obviously, as we talked about it in the beginning, as we first engaged, we focus very heavily on the relationship aspect and the business outcomes, and we never forget why we engage with people. And it's all very well to have, we can do X, Y, and Z, but it's about focusing on why do we need to do that? What is the business outcome? So perhaps at this stage is a good time to ask you, how did you find the engagement process with us when we obviously went and worked with you and looked at qualifying a solution that met your needs, your business needs, to give you that more confidence in cyber?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very easy process. Not to blow. It was.
Please feel free, Steve. I have no issues with that.
You're still there? Sorry.
Sorry, no. Please feel free to blow. Yeah, I have no issues with that at all. So.
Have I lost you?
Oh, sorry. I think the beauties of home working might have kicked in there. Can you still hear me, Steve?
We seem to be having a little bit of problem with communications. Steve, can you hear me okay? Hi, Steve or Richard?
I can hear you, Mike. Can you?
Yeah, I think we may have lost Steve, actually. I can hear you as well, Richard.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
well, I'll tell you what, whilst we're waiting for Steve to come back online, why don't we, because I think we've covered quite a lot of ground with Steve there as well. So maybe now's a good, and we can obviously come back to Steve when he joins us a little bit later to get some more feedback. So on that point, I think it's probably a good time to move forward into looking at some real world scenarios with our head of professional services, Dr. Mike. We can go over some of the aspects of how these challenges and use cases can relate to some real world scenarios that you may or may not be familiar with. So on that note, I'll probably hand over to you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. Yeah, hi guys. So yeah, as Richard says, I head up the professional services here at CSTEM, and I'm also one of the main kind of Counteract engineers that will work on implementing this for you guys. I'm going to keep this this kind of demo really high level. I don't want to kind of bore you guys with the nitty-gritty of it, but I wanted to give you a very quick overview and just reiterate some of the points. I know we've had a couple of questions that are also asking around this kind of information, which is, you know, can we really see all of our devices that are connected to our network? And the answer is yes. I mean, Counteract will give you a view of literally every single device that has either a MAC address, an IP address, or one of the either or on your network, whether that be a Windows machine, whether it be IoT device such as a CCTV camera, a door access control, right through to a smart fridge or a TV or anything. Basically, we can see absolutely everything that's connected to your network. That's on a live stream. It takes us somewhere between 2 and 20 seconds to detect and classify any new devices that connect to your network. And I'm sure you'll agree, you know, between 2 and 20 seconds, although, you know, is it quite a lot of time if you've got something ready to compromise a network, it is an awful lot of time for things to start to spread across and do much damage. So what we do is we firstly primary classify all of your devices. So we look at what they are, and we try and get them into a bucket as quickly as we possibly can. You can see on the screen here, primary classification. We're showing you printer devices, network devices, Windows devices. You can see Macs, Linux, there's some NAT devices there, mobile devices. And the answer there really is to get them into a bucket as quickly as we can, high-level overview of what they are, so that we can then kind of further interrogate those devices a little bit later on. But the range of spectrum of what we can connect what we can detect is literally anything and everything. Forescout is one of the leading security products on the planet. Gartner put it right in this top quadrant, right above Cisco ISE and a few other NAC vendors. And it's for that reason that we choose this NAC as being our main product against security for your networks. It's more than just a NAC, which I'm sure you'll understand in a second. So yeah, after we've done primary classification, and by the way, I know that we've got some hospitals on here. We can do things like healthcare devices. You can see here we've got X-ray machines, health monitors, infusion pumps, MRI scanners, etc. There really isn't an IoT device that we have ever failed to qualify. Even if the system doesn't qualify it right out of the box, we will show you how to manipulate the policy set so that once you've qualified one device, any other device that falls into that same criteria will also be qualified at a later date. So that's what we would call primary classification or classify. We would then go on to what would formerly be known as clarify or further assess. So the simplest definition to give you here would be on the Windows machines. What we do is we know that we've got 125 Windows devices connected to the network, but out of that, we want to know which one of those we have management access over. So is it integrated? Is it on our domain? Do we have local admin rights over it? Is it a machine that should be on our network? We do that by looking at domain managed devices. So anything that's integrated with Active Directory or your local domain or multiple domains. And as I said, we plumb in local admin rights over the machine into the counteract, and then we can control every aspect of that machine. It goes all the way down. You can see an example here on our canned demo. We've got secure, connect and manage. We've got manually approved Windows devices. Sometimes in networks, especially in healthcare networks, you have devices that for whatever reason cannot be on the domain, or we don't have standard local admin rights over. So we have a way of being able to manually approve those devices so that we know that they're on the domain, we know that they're there, and we know that we're not going to do anything that we shouldn't do to those devices. All the way down to the section here where we have unknown Windows machines. Now, you'll find an unknown section in every single policy as we go further down the assess or clarify sections. Unknown is basically we don't know why this is connected to our network. We don't know who it is. And we either need to know, obviously we definitely need to know that we've got unknown Windows devices on our network. But we can do something about it as well. Now, this is where Counteract really gets impressive. Any unknown devices, we can kick them off the network. We can move them. We can VLAN block them. We can virtual firewall them. We can switch block. We can VLAN move. We can do pretty much anything you guys can come up with as to deal with unknown machines. And it's the same really for anything that's connected to your network, even an IoT device that perhaps we don't have any local admin rights over. If it's a device that for whatever reason does not fit your policy set, we can kick it off the network within seconds of detecting it. And of course, that can happen at 3 o'clock in the morning when you guys are in bed, you know, dreaming of Christmas, right? That's the key. Yep, sorry.
Mike, if I may just elaborate on that point as well. You've raised a good point there now, in terms of it's about having that understanding your threats involves understanding what's on your network. And as you've quite rightly said there, we can provide a wide scope of visibility. And a lot of people, I've seen some of the questions come through, a lot of people already have things in place to do some of this. But obviously, as we laid out at the beginning, we very much focus on what are the gaps and bridging that gap. So we work with the tools that are already in place. And sometimes that view of what is actually connected versus what's supposed to be connected, when it involves things that are non-corporate owned devices, can be quite different. And I think the view of having one device that you can't see is ultimately leading to exposure. So there was a question asked earlier that what else can we do? I think the fundamental is to start with visibility. Would you agree, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you know, don't forget, if a hacker was try and compromise your network, they're going to make it difficult for you. They're going to try and dodge your security. They're going to try and make your security believe that they should be on your network. With Counteract, we've got so many ways of posture checking a device that, you know, they might get through 1, 2, maybe even 3 of your checks, but they won't get through them all. We're pretty certain that if somebody tried to compromise your network with Forescout connected, we would catch them, and we would find out. And of course, don't forget, most of this can be done without an agent. No agent is needed to be deployed. Very little change, if any change, is needed on your network. We can deploy this pretty much out of the box and be up and running within a day or so. Obviously, there are a lot more configuration that needs to be done, and there are a lot of policy changes and sculpturing to be done. But of course, we hold your hand through that every step of the way. But those changes are also what make Counteract so good. If you've got a challenge, if you've got a requirement, chances are we'll be able to help you develop a policy to see that. Now, just before I move on to that, just to kind of really finish what I'm saying here, everything that we've connected above, everything that we've decided we want to look at, we need to figure out that those devices that fall into that that section are actually owned by us. I'll give you an example. Everybody has CCTV systems. They're connected to the network. Quite often in network environments, they're just connected to the network. No second thought is given if that CCTV camera has a vulnerability on it that's going to start scanning your network and sending data out via an FTP connection that it's got. Nobody cares that, especially in care homes, that somebody maybe is rolled up, connected a CCTV camera. Maybe somebody is doing I don't know, a media investigation on your care home or something, and they want to start spying on your staff. Well, very little people have something in place that would be able to detect on that granular level that somebody is trying to do that. With Counteract, we absolutely can do that. We will develop policies that will say all of your CCTV cameras have to comply with a very stringent set of rules. And if anybody tries to connect any other type of CCTV camera that doesn't pass your 6 or 7 rules, it will not get connected to your network. And that is also key for any other device that we talk about. There's a very well-known story of a Las Vegas casino that was hemorrhaging kind of information based on how their clients were using the casino, what they were doing, how long they were spending on different things, you know, all sorts of different bits of information. And the casino couldn't find out, you know, how they were leaking this information. They actually dropped a Counteract in play, did a few policy sculptures, and detected an unknown device connected to a system monitor on a big fish tank and a big aquarium that they had there. and it was found out that somebody had modified a Raspberry Pi, put it into the aquarium, had full access to the network, because again, as I said, people don't lock down or segment these devices, and was gathering data from their network. So it's quite easy to do. It actually, it happens every day out there. With Counteract in place, we can make sure that your network is as thorough and as secure as you possibly want it to be. Now, when we finish doing that, and we finish deciding whether or not machines should be on the network, shouldn't be on the network, or even automatically moving things into different VLANs, which is another very good aspect of the Counteract, we can tag a device for a certain VLAN. So, for example, if a VoIP device must always be on the VoIP VLAN, but you don't want to have to keep configuring switches every time somebody moves a VoIP device, we can tag that VoIP device, or that set of VoIP devices, tag them to a certain VLAN, and then if anybody picks them up, moves them, plugs them in anywhere on your network, they will automatically get moved to the correct VLAN. So yeah, that's another really good example. Now, after we've finished doing that, and like I said, we've discussed that every device is connected to our network, is in the right place, we know what it is. We then want to start to kind of compliance check it. So again, we're looking at Windows devices. Are the Windows devices running antivirus? Are they running the right version of antivirus? Is it up to date? Is antivirus installed but not running? Is the wrong version of antivirus installed? Now, when we give you that information, Counteract can do something about it. So if antivirus is running but out of date, Counteract can send a command to update that antivirus. If antivirus is installed but not running, Counteract can start the antivirus. If the wrong version of antivirus is installed, Counteract can uninstall the wrong version and push out the right version. Disk encryption, you see the next one down there. Are our devices encrypted? Are they encrypted live? Are they not encrypted? Now, these are the kind of questions that you'll get asked on Cyber Essentials, for one example. Can you tell us that all of your laptops are encrypted on your network at all times? Now, many people will answer yes, but when they actually are asked to evidence this, things become slightly difficult. Well, with Counteract, all we need to do is put up a policy, print off a report, which I can show you in a bit, or bring up a dashboard, and we will have an absolutely live view on your network as to whether or not your devices are encrypted. Do you want to control external USB devices? We can do that. Do you want to detect if there are rogue software running on your network? Or indeed, even if you just want to asset check and know how many devices are running a certain version of a certain piece of software on your network, we can do that as well. It really goes on and on and on. The amount of things that we can offer you all in this one device is absolutely fantastic. And don't forget as well, we don't aim to replace other products that you may already have on your network. Forescout has a very, very good integration policy. So we can take feeds from all sorts of other devices, whether they be SIEM devices or kind of live feeds, CMDBs, register devices, asset devices, whatever external software you may have. We can take live feeds from that. Of course, we can also integrate with firewalls and talk to switches and things such as this nature. So yeah, we're not out to replace anything. We're out to enhance what you may already have, and then kind of give you a bit more. So yeah, what software is installed, what version of that software, how many different versions of Java is running, when was the last time it was updated. All of that information is absolutely available to you at a click of a button. That gives you most of the stuff that you can do with a Windows machine, but we can also do the same kind of thing with a Mac, a Linux machine, a network device, an IoT device. We're very proud to be passive as well, which is very important, especially for medical devices. We do not interrogate those devices at all. We will look at mirrored traffic, we'll look at tap traffic or trunk traffic, and we will read the headers that's incorporated there in the TCP or the UDP traffic, and we will then posture check them based on that. So if you want to know passively what version of software your X-ray machine is running, we could probably give you that answer too. IoT devices, cloud devices, mobile devices, the answer is the same.
No,
finally,
sorry,
yep.
Mike, just to elaborate on that point there, because I've seen a couple of questions come in. I think you touched base on it as well, that one thing that we do acknowledge is that a lot of organizations will have lots of things in place. And I think Steve himself earlier on touched base on this, that they have multiple tools and services in play that they have to go to for different elements of their protection and to get that data visibility. But as Steve mentioned earlier, and I think some of the attendees have highlighted, it'd be nice just to flick on the switch and get the information of what you need. And I think you and I both agree some of the projects that we've been involved in is it's that sense of verification that you get from this as well, isn't it? That when you're looking at understanding your threats, well, part of understanding your threats is how quickly you can get access to the information. And I think some of the things that you've talked about here is just having that immediate view. And you touch base as well on, I'm not going to steal the show, obviously, but you touch base on some of the reporting aspect. And it's not only having that view, but a means of communicating it at a high level up the chain to senior exec, to board members, in a way that it can be understood and digested so it's not complex.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you know, like Richard said, and I said previously, we're not out to replace some of the tools you may already have. We're really there to enhance those tools and give you an absolute live single pane of glass that will enable you to modify, change, or control your network. Control is our last section, by the way. So, you know, control kind of goes back to the basic form of a NAC. Is it on the network? Is it off the network? But we can do threat analysis on control as well. So Counteract has the ability to detect the DNA of certain characteristics of infected devices. So ransomware, or man-in-the-middle attacks, or denial of service attacks, or anything that kind of may give off a pattern of detection. We're able to see that straight away. Now we're monitoring the devices live, so the moment that something gets infected, Counteract can put that control on it, put a virtual firewall over it, move it, do something with it, and warn you guys that something has happened. We had an instance back in the day of WannaCry. I was out in the evening. I was out to lunch that evening, and WannaCry broke out. It was on the news. A client of ours contacted me and said, "Oh dear, I'm a bit worried about this WannaCry. You know, what should we do? Should we get in the office? Should we switch everything off?" They had a Counteract. I was able to connect up to the Counteract via my phone, put a policy in place that detected for any potential vulnerabilities from WannaCry. I was able to isolate a few machines on their network that did seem to be infected. I moved them, or Counteract moved them out of the way, confirmed that no other devices were infected, and allowed that member of staff, or in fact that owner of the company, to be rest assured that her network was safe, and that she didn't need to run into the office, and that on Monday morning when she did come into the office, she'd have a report there for her stakeholders to say that they were aware of WannaCry, they'd done something about it, their network was safe, here's the machines that potentially were infected, and this is what we've done about that as well. So it's having that thing in place that is that has always got your back. That is the important thing with Counteract. I know one of the questions here says that you have in place kind of encryption on your machines, and you have VLANs across different machines, CCTV, guest networks, etc. And these devices can't cross over. Well, that's great. I mean, that's fine. So a CCTV device can't cross over because it's been labeled as a CCTV device. But what if somebody was to pretend to be a CCTV device and try and move from that network to another network, for example? How could you detect the change pattern within devices that was occurring? So quite often we find that software is either on or off, and there's nothing in between. And I think with Counteract, we can offer that in between intelligence of your network devices. So I'll quickly show you a couple of the other key things that Forescout offers. Please bear with me. This is a canned demo, and sometimes it has a mind of its own and decides not to work. But I'm hopefully going to show you the dashboard. Now, the dashboard is there for you to put up on a big screen, have key insight to what's on your network, how your network is performing, how your devices are, whether they're compliant. Basically just have it there so that you can always see what's going on within your network. So we can see things such as, operating systems of devices on our network, what vendor and model of devices, the functionality of those devices. Maybe we can click on device compliance here. We can see, a quick snapshot of what's going on with the compliance within our network. And this is all interchangeable as well. If you want to find something else, if you want to add something to this, this chart that categorizes whether a device is compliant or non-compliant, we can help you do that. It really does have that ability to kind of fit into whatever you guys decide you want it to do. So yeah, there's just a very quick shot of some of the things that we can see on the dashboard. We all like a dashboard. It kind of makes our IT rooms look cool anyway, right? So yeah, everybody likes a dashboard. The other thing that we can offer is reporting. So we touched on reporting just a second ago. I'm going to quickly show you a report that you could do. So we're going to pull up a report based on the antivirus details of our network. So you can see I'm creating this report live, and you can see how easy it is, providing the policy is in place. So we're going to go down, we're going to select all of our IPs, policy breakdown, I want a PDF, and I want to do this on the antivirus on my network. So we just find that, he says, which normally should be easy, but as you can see, we have quite a lot of policies in here. I tell you what, let's just change it for the sake of this. We're going to put this to Windows patch compliance instead. So Windows updates, just to make it easier for me because that's already selected. So we would build our report. We would decide whether we want the report to be sent automatically every day, every week, once a week, whether we who we want the report to be sent to, or in this case, I'm just going to save the report so it's there for me to run whenever I want. We can then run the report, and within a couple of seconds, this report will hopefully give you a nice graph, a nice pie chart, and a list of details of all the machines that perhaps are missing Windows updates. This is great for producing evidence for things such as, are all our machines compliant? Do they all have encryption on them? Are they all up to date? Etc. etc. Let me just see if I can make this a bit bigger for you. Just bear with me.
And whilst you're doing that as well, Mike, I think you've touched on a good point there. Having that sort of complete hardware and software asset inventory as well. We've seen the value, whilst obviously its primary purpose is cyber, it's expanded the value into other things such as migration projects or other IT projects that are related to devices. i.e., you want to do a hardware refresh. What devices are in use? What have we got out there? How many devices do we have to do? So it's a good tool to use in automating that real-time asset detection rather than resorting back to potentially legacy means of keeping track of those assets.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that you can do on a device with admin access, we can build a policy to do that. So, you know, keeping on Windows because it's the easiest way to get the point over. If you want to know how much space is left on all of your Windows machines, you can create a policy to do that. Anything that you could do sat in front of that Windows machine with admin access, we can do with the Counteract. And as Richard said, you know, that helps asset and software upgrades and new equipment purchases. It makes everything so much easier when you could just develop a policy and get that information at the click of a finger. So yeah, that's a very high level view. I don't think I should go any further into detail on that. I think that gives you a quick overview of what the Counteract to do. Just in summary, classification, clarification of the device, classification of the device, what is it? Clarification of the device, do we own it? Should it be on our network? Compliance of the device, if it's on our network, is it up to date? Now, actually, just whilst I'm there, I just want to touch very quickly on the current pandemic and people working from home, you know, VPNs and BYODs and this kind of thing. Now, Counteract also has the ability to install an agent to unmanaged machines. It's very lightweight, it can run as a service, and it gives us the ability to have full admin rights over that device. So if somebody has got BYOD and they absolutely have to use their machine on your network via VPN, home working, for example, we can deploy the agent. We can then answer those important questions. Is this machine up to date? Does it have antivirus on it? Is it infected with something? Are they running software that we wouldn't want them to be running on our network? So, you know, that gives you a whole other angle to what Counteract can do. You know, BYOD, yeah, not a problem. We're in an age now where BYOD is becoming more mainstream. People want to be able to use their own devices to do their work. That's fine. Counteract can absolutely allow that, but it can also do it whilst keeping your network safe. That is a very important part of this. So yeah, that's compliance. And then control, you know, control can be, we don't want any devices that are made by Dell on our network. If somebody tries to connect it, then disconnect them. We don't want anybody coming into the office at 3 o'clock in the morning and plugging in a wireless access point or hooking up their PlayStations. We've seen that, you know, bringing in TVs, hooking up Netflix, all that kind of stuff. So, yep, that's control, and that kind of brings us around nicely from the start to the end. Very high level whirlwind tour of Counteract. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. I was just going to give you a time check anyway, because I'm just conscious of the time. So we'll just do a bit of summing up at the end. If you can give me the screen back, that'd be great. So yeah, obviously, as Mike has shown you there, we've gone over some of the use cases and the practical applications relating to those use cases. Just want to make sure that I'm still sharing my screen. I believe that I am. So just to obviously summarize in terms of some of those use cases that we went across. So we talked about understanding the threats, how asset inventory can relate to that, competing demands on time, skills and resource that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. How to respond to risk mitigation, reporting at exec. So thank you for this today. Obviously, it's been a good chance to showcase some of the stuff that we do and why we do it, and some of the people that we work with. And obviously, just to summarize why we do what we do, we covered off the fact that you've got your digital transformation journeys, and we work with organizations for data-informed decision making. We look to obviously accelerate those timescales, reduce your time, effort, and cost, which obviously we've had some discussions with Steve today about how we've been able to achieve that and improve the risk management. We talked about relationship being key in terms of how we as an organization work. And it's important to mention that because we have a strict engagement process that we go through, obviously we've been doing the CSTEM and possible solution introductions today. we would relish the opportunity to work with you guys and look at confirmation of those charges and payment codes. One of the key things to note at this stage as well is the process that we adhere to works in one of two ways. It will either help you confidently qualify the need of technology with the business, or indeed it might qualify that it's not the right fit. Either way, we see that as a positive engagement, because we don't want to be in a position where we're promoting technology that doesn't fit the need. So by following this process, you'll be pleased to know that it will either qualify whether it's applicable, not applicable. But either way, we would welcome the opportunity to engage and look at some investigations with you. And that probably leads me to sum up and say thank you very much for everybody's time today. We do have regular webinars that we run across the areas of smart services, so please feel free to follow us on LinkedIn or check out our website, keep up to date with what we're going. We have had a couple of questions come in, and I think we'll probably be best to respond to them offline with time allowing. So we'll be in contact and we can have a chat about some of the things raised on the questions. I think we've covered some during the session, but we'll pick up those offline. So just leaves me to say thank you very much. Thank you, Steve, for joining. I know you jumped back in with us. We had some challenges with you earlier, but you're online. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you to Mike. Thank you for all involved, and obviously everybody for taking the time to attend, and look forward to having some further discussions.